I have just done 3 years off drinking alcohol. I'm making this video for those of you out there looking for a little bit of extra motivation in making your decision to quit too. In this video, I'm going to talk about the reasons I've decided to stay sober. I will also review my 1 year off video and see has anything changed since then. I will talk about the 4 stages of quitting and give you a conclusion of where my relationship with alcohol is after 3 years off. So I'm someone who found it quite difficult to quit drinking. I absolutely loved it. I used to drink, I would say on average between 3 and 5 times per week at my height. For me to quit, it took quite a lot of motivation and also a very different way of looking at the world. And it's this different way of looking at the world that I'd like to share with you in this video. I'm hoping that by watching this video, it'll make your journey to sobriety a lot easier. I'd also like to say that I'm just a normal person who decided to quit. I'm not an expert, and these are my own opinions that I'm giving you about my journey of 3 years off alcohol. To quit, I watched videos on YouTube and just tried to figure it all out on my own. Now I must say, over the 3 years, the Alan Carr Easy Way to Quit Drinking has been my Bible. I've read it 15 to 20 times over the years. I don't really read it anymore because eventually, after reading it so much, the ideas in the book really do make their way into your mind and change the way you view the world and you view drinking and sobriety. I still have written on the first page of the book the day I decided to quit, 28th of November 2023. I remember at the start of my journey, I started to research celebrities who didn't drink. And the one celebrity that I eventually landed on was Brad Pitt. So funny to say Brad Pitt helped me on my sobriety journey. I think we might look at celebrities or sports personalities and try to emulate what they've done. And it's interesting how it can have such a big effect on you. I think it comes from a point of if it worked for them and they've become successful, maybe it'll work for me. Something I think about a lot is that we ask sometimes the wrong questions when talking about drinking and deciding to quit drink. I've actually worked in an Irish pub for 10 years since I was 18. I'm 28 now. And sometimes I'd come home and tell my parents about a wild night or friends that I had that went out, and my parents would ask, why would someone want to go out and do that? And for me, especially when I quit drinking, I used to think, well, the answer to that is simple. You go out, you have a few vodkas, go to a nightclub, and you see where the night takes you.
Sounds like my Friday night.
Oh, shut up, Seth. We went to temple.
The way I think about it now is it's kind of a short-term thinking versus a long-term thinking kind of problem. So usually when you do go out and you have that crazy night, you're out till 4 a.m, you get a takeaway on the way home, you're cramming in as much fun as is humanly possible into one night. But you got to think, how does that affect your week? How does that affect your month? You're going to be hungover for the next 3 days, the amount of money you wasted on, and let's just keep it real, a headache. These things really can affect your week. And over a month, if you're doing that multiple times, it really can affect your month too. So if you're looking at it over a year, you're thinking the amount of money I would have saved, the amount of days I spent hungover, and my poor diet choices, these things really can add up. And I think it is one of the reasons why a lot of people, when they want to make a change to improve their lives, drinking is one of the first things that they look at trying to eliminate. One thing that I've said to myself a lot over the years when I have friends who try to do dry January, or they try to do a few months off, is that there's a big difference between 1 and 0. And that is the difference between no drink, 0 drinks throughout the entire year, and someone who has the occasional drink or two. So many people do dry January here in Ireland. I think it's great that people want to take a break and have a healthier month, but it's a very different mindset from someone who decides to quit and wants to stay sober for their future, whether it be a year, 5 years, or forever, whatever your goal is. That even on your birthday, at a wedding, a sporting event, over Christmas, you don't have a single drink. And that can be very, very difficult because it's at these occasions where usually everyone's having a drink and there's a strong social pressure for you to join in. And you've got to be the strange one who's the only one not drinking. It's not Monday to Thursday that's difficult. It's not 90% of your month. It's that one day where there's an event on that you've really got to resist the urge to have a drink. If you're going to quit, I highly recommend finding a new passion. If you decide to quit, you're going to have so much extra time, energy, and money. And it really makes sense to put this towards something productive in your life. If you already have a hobby, spend more time doing it. I have found that when I decided to quit, I spend so much more time developing myself. It gives you so much extra focus to spend on whether it's your relationships or your career. My biggest fear when I decided to quit was actually going to sleep. I used to absolutely love having a bottle of wine and sleeping like a baby. And I kind of feared that I wouldn't have that enjoyment anymore and I wouldn't be able to sleep as good anymore. So that was something I was afraid of. Versus now, my biggest fear, I think, is after doing so long off, that if I was to drink again, I would feel very disappointed and ashamed in myself. And this is something that maybe as a comment you could let me know if you agree or disagree. Someone who's done so long off, whether it's 1 month or 6 months or a year, do you tend to catch up for lost time? If I was to go back drinking, would I go extra hard? So that is something I fear. When I did a year off drinking, I made a video on YouTube, and it actually turned out to be one of my most successful ones. So I thought I would go back to it, and I thought I would also go over some of the things I said after doing a year off drinking and see, do they still apply to my life now 2 years later. So after a year, I said that I feel a high social pressure to drink. After 3 years, that really doesn't apply. Do I feel tempted? Rarely to never. It's very, very easy to keep up. I would say my motivation to stay off has gotten even stronger as time has passed. But I must tell you this story as it came 2 months ago when I had nearly gotten to my 3-year mark. I was 1 week out from a friend's wedding in Italy. There'd be a big celebration. I was going to let loose. And I think the equation in my head was big celebration equals blow off some steam. And I realized I had nothing to do that with. I don't drink anymore. And there was kind of a sad feeling there because I was really looking forward to the wedding. And I felt like without having drink, I wasn't going to be able to enjoy it as much. And unfortunately, I must admit that that is a sacrifice. And I do understand people who do want to cut down and do a few months off, but they still want to be able to have a drink or two when at a big occasion. Now that does bring me quite easily to a question that I've gotten over the years. And that question is, why don't you just try to cut down and drink less? And I must say, for me, if I could have had 1 or 2, I would have only had 1 or 2. I can't, unfortunately.
And I wouldn't be fond of drinking, but when I go at it...
For me, my relationship with alcohol just always felt like an unhealthy one. You know, someone might say to me, why don't you just cut down to once a week or to once a month? But I really just felt like my relationship with alcohol was unhealthy and we needed to break up. I think in my mind, I found it easier just to quit cold turkey than to try and manage a relationship of feast and famine with alcohol and trying to police myself constantly. I remember reading a study and it was about people who enjoyed going out and having a few drinks, and the study asked them, would you like to have 0 drinks or would you like to have 1? And a higher proportion of the people said that they would rather have 0. And I thought that was quite interesting because if you quite enjoy something like drinking, why not just have 1? It's something you really like. But the study was pointing very interestingly that after having 1 drink, you've got to go through all the withdrawals and all the cravings of having a second. So people found it better to just have nothing than to have 1 and then to spend the rest of the night dealing with the cravings and the temptation to have another. And that, I think, for a lot of people is the big problem with drinking alcohol. Now, in my 1 year off video, I do talk quite a lot about the pros of quitting. And the problem I have now after 3 years is I've forgotten quite a lot of the pros. Not being hungover anymore was a big motivator for me when I decided to quit 3 years ago. You know, I thought about how much healthier I'd be, how much more I'd get done. Whether when you do so long off something, you forget about the benefits. One thing that definitely will not give you a hangover is that if you subscribe to my YouTube channel, I'd really appreciate it as I'm working very hard to get this channel up and running to bring you excellent content over the next years, whether it's about self-improvement or travel and adventure. If you would subscribe to my channel, I would hugely appreciate it. On with the video. In my year off video, I said that I'm constantly explaining myself. One thing that's changed, I feel like over the years, is I've moved through the stages of quitting. And I'd like to break this down into 4 different stages. The first stage is where you're constantly explaining yourself and talking about the fact that you quit drinking. The second stage is that you're proud of it, proud of yourself and constantly talking and you could say showing off. The third stage is when you realize that people really don't enjoy hearing about the fact that you quit drinking. When I would say it, people would kind of reply with, well, I only drink once a month. And I started to realize that when you talk about quitting something, whether it's coffee or cigarettes or drinking, people can kind of take it as that you're aiming it towards them. And for me, that really wasn't the case. You know, I decided to quit drinking to improve my life. I didn't decide to quit drinking to inspire others. I just wanted to make a change in myself. When I'm at a party, I really don't want to get into a discussion. Should we drink? Should we not drink? I just want to keep to myself. And then the final step is that you only tell people you've quit if you're asked. One of my favorite compliments that I can get, whether it's a night out or someone I've met, I'm friends with, is they would figure out a week or 2 later and they'd be like, oh, I didn't know you didn't drink. That is something that I think is great. And I think that when you do quit, you should aspire to getting to that point because it can become quite tiring and that your identity is of a non-drinker. This is me, this is who I am with a little asterisk doesn't drink. You got to quit and continue on with your life. I also said at the year off point that when I don't drink, I really don't like to go out as much. And unfortunately, that is a reality for me. I don't know, will it be a reality for you? I think now maybe once per month I might go out. Whether when I was drinking, I think I used to go out some weeks Friday night and Saturday night.
Sometimes there's more to life than drinking, lads.
Right, a conclusion. How am I going to wrap this all up? If you've watched this video to this point and you're looking for the motivation, I hugely believe in you and believe in yourself. Have faith that you can do it. If it's something that you've wanted to do for a long time and that you've been thinking about and feeling would be an improvement for your life, you owe it to yourself to give it a go.